This story was submitted anonymously. If you have a story you'd like to share, send it to us. Before we begin, I need you to do something. If you're on a cruise ship right now, or if you've ever been on one, check your cruise app, go to the deck map, count the floors, all of them. Make sure you know exactly how many decks your ship has. I'm serious, because what I'm about to tell you involves a woman who didn't do that, and what she found changed her life forever. This story was sent to me 6 months ago by someone who refuses to give me her real name. For this video, we'll call her Sarah. She's 29 years old. She works in marketing, loves true crime podcasts, ironically. And in December 2023, she went on her honeymoon. She came back alone. Well, not exactly alone, but we'll get to that. December 10th, 2023. Sarah and her husband Jason boarded a cruise ship in Barcelona. 10-day Mediterranean cruise. Their first real vacation together as a married couple. They'd been planning it for over a year. The ship was massive. And I mean massive. One of those modern mega cruisers that's basically a floating city. 14 decks. Capacity for 3,200 passengers. Restaurants, pools, a casino, shopping mall, even a rock climbing wall. Everything on the ship was controlled through an app. And I mean everything. Your room key was digital. Your dinner reservations, your spa appointments, the daily activity schedule. Even communication with other passengers went through this app. The app had this feature called Find Family. Pretty standard stuff. It used the ship's internal network to show you where people in your party were at any given time. Basically GPS, but for the ship. Sarah told me they used it maybe 4 or 5 times in the first 3 days. You know, when they'd split up to do different activities and wanted to meet up later. Jason would go to the gym. Sarah would go to the pool. Check the app. See where the other person is. Meet up for lunch. Simple. Convenient. But Sarah told me something else. Something she noticed from day one but didn't really think about until later. The ship felt empty. Not actually empty, obviously. There were thousands of people on board, but certain areas, certain corridors, especially at night, they felt abandoned. She'd be walking down a hallway that should have 50 people in it, and there'd be nobody. Just the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of the engines. She mentioned it to Jason on the second night. He laughed, said she was being paranoid, said these ships are so big that the crowds get spread out. You can walk for 5 minutes and not see anyone, then turn a corner and run into a mob of people. Sarah wanted to believe that. She tried to shake the feeling, but it stayed with her. This persistent sense that something about the ship was off. And then came the 4th night. December 13th, 4th night of the cruise. Sarah and Jason had dinner at one of the specialty restaurants. Italian place on deck 7. Really nice. They finished around 9:30, maybe 9:45. Both of them were pretty tired, but Jason wanted to check out the casino for a bit. He'd seen it earlier in the week and wanted to try his luck at blackjack. Sarah didn't want to go. Casinos aren't really her thing. So they agreed to split up. Jason would go to the casino, Sarah would head back to the cabin, maybe call her mom. They had Wi-Fi that night. They'd meet back at the room by midnight. Standard cruise night. Sarah got back to the cabin around 10:15, made her phone call, took a shower, changed into sweats, comfortable clothes. She was planning to just watch something on her tablet until Jason got back. 11 o'clock. Still not back. Not unusual. 11:30. Still not back. Starting to wonder. 11:45. Okay, this is getting a little ridiculous. She picked up her phone and opened the cruise app. Tapped on Find Family. The little map interface loaded, and there was Jason's location, marked with a blue dot. Deck 15. Sarah stared at the screen, blinked, closed the app, opened it again. Still there. Deck 15. She grabbed the physical map they'd gotten at check-in, the folded glossy thing with all the deck layouts printed on it. She spread it out on the bed and started counting. Deck 1, where the crew areas and storage were. Deck 2, more crew spaces. Deck 3, first passenger cabins. She went all the way up. Deck 14, the sky deck, the highest point on the ship accessible to passengers. There was no Deck 15. Sarah looked back at her phone. The app was still showing Jason's location on Deck 15. The blue dot was pulsing right there on the screen, exactly where it shouldn't be. She tried calling him. The call rang once and dropped, just died. She tried again. Same thing. She sent a text. "Where are you?" The message showed as sent but not delivered, but the app kept updating. Jason was still on Deck 15, and now she noticed something else. The timestamp. It said 23:34. That was 11 minutes ago. The app was supposed to update in real time, but this was frozen, like his location had been captured at that exact moment and hadn't moved since. Sarah sat on the edge of the bed, staring at that screen. She knew it was probably just a glitch. These apps malfunction all the time. GPS gets wonky on ships, all that metal interfering with the signal. But something in her gut told her this wasn't a glitch. She grabbed her keycard and jacket and left the cabin. The hallways were too quiet. It was 11:50 p.m. Not that late for a cruise ship. There should have been people everywhere. Couples heading back from shows. Groups stumbling back from the bars. Crew members doing their rounds. But as Sarah walked to the elevators, she passed maybe 3 people total. An elderly couple moving very slowly. A crew member pushing a room service cart who didn't make eye contact. That was it. She pressed the button for the elevator. It took almost a full minute to arrive. When the doors opened, it was empty. She stepped in and pressed 14, the sky deck. The elevator ride felt longer than it should have. Sarah counted in her head, trying to calm herself. 47 seconds for 13 floors. When the doors finally opened, the first thing that hit her was the wind. It was strong, really strong. Cold, too. But what disturbed her more than the wind was the emptiness. The sky deck was supposed to be one of the most popular spots on the ship. Even at midnight, there were usually at least 20 or 30 people up there, taking pictures, looking at the stars, making out in the dark corners. But when Sarah stepped out onto the deck, nobody. Not a single person. The deck was fully lit. The bar in the corner was still set up, bottles arranged neatly, glasses hanging from the overhead rack. There was even a drink sitting on one of the tables. She could see the ice cubes, still intact, floating in what looked like a rum and coke. But no bartender, no passengers, nobody. Sarah pulled out her phone and checked the app again. Jason's location was still showing above her. Deck 15. She looked around. This was supposed to be the top of the ship. There was nothing above this except antennas and navigation equipment. She walked the perimeter of the deck slowly. The railing was waist-high, solid metal with a wooden top. Below, the Mediterranean stretched out in every direction. It was a new moon, barely any light, just the ship's running lights reflecting off the black water. And then she saw it, in the far corner of the deck, tucked behind some ventilation equipment. A door. It was industrial, heavy metal, no window. The kind of door you'd see in the engine room or a restricted area. There was a small sign on it, partially corroded, restricted, crew only. And the door wasn't fully closed. There was a gap, maybe 3-4 centimeters, and from that gap, a dim red light was seeping out. Sarah stood there for a long time, just staring at that door. Every rational part of her brain was telling her to turn around, go back to the cabin, wait for Jason there, but the app was still showing him above her, on a deck that didn't exist. She walked to the door, put her hand on the cold metal, and pushed. The door swung open easily. Too easily. Like it had been waiting for her. On the other side was a stairwell, but this wasn't like the elegant staircases you see on the main passenger decks. This was industrial, utilitarian, the kind of space passengers were never meant to see. The walls were bare metal, no paint, no finishing, just riveted steel plates, some showing rust stains. The stairs themselves were grated metal, the kind that makes noise when you walk on them. And it was cold, much colder than it should have been. Sarah could see her breath. She started climbing. She counted each step, told me later she did this to control her breathing, to keep the panic at bay. 1, 2, 3. The stairs were steep, steeper than normal ship stairs. 7, 8, 9. She could hear her footsteps echoing in the narrow space. Each clang seemed to repeat multiple times, bouncing off the metal walls. 15, 16, 17. Below the echo of her steps, she could hear something else. A deep, rhythmic thrumming. The ship's engines, probably. But it sounded different here. More visceral, like a heartbeat. 20, 21, 22. Almost there. 23. At the 23rd step, she reached another door, heavier than the first, industrial grade. The kind you'd find on a submarine. No normal handle, just a wheel mechanism, like a ship's bulkhead. Sarah grabbed the wheel with both hands. It was freezing. She turned it counterclockwise. 1 full rotation. 2, 3. Then she heard a heavy clunk as the locking mechanism disengaged. She pulled. The door was massively heavy, but it moved smoothly on well-maintained hinges. It swung open with a deep groan, and on the other side was a deck that shouldn't exist. It was a full deck, just as large as the sky deck she'd just left, but completely different. There were no walls, no ceiling, just open air and the night sky above. But the deck itself, it was unfinished, raw, like looking at the skeleton of the ship. Exposed metal beams, pipes running along the ceiling, cables hanging loose in places. The floor was the same grated metal as the stairwell, and the only light came from those red bulbs, spaced far apart, creating more shadows than illumination. Sarah checked her phone. The temperature reading said 4 degrees Celsius. That's about 39 Fahrenheit, way too cold for the Mediterranean in December. The app still showed Jason's location. Same deck, about 30 meters forward. She called out, "Jason!" The echo was wrong. Sarah couldn't explain it to me exactly, but she said the sound came back, different, like it had bounced off something that wasn't there, or like the space had different dimensions than it should. No response, just the echo. And below that, the constant deep thrum of the engines. And then she noticed the floor. Wet footprints, barefoot, adult-sized but small. They were recent. The water was still pooling around them, not yet evaporated. The footprints led forward in a straight line across the entire length of the deck. Sarah followed them. She doesn't know why. Can't explain it. She just followed. The footprints went all the way to the far railing. And then they just stopped. Sarah approached the edge and looked down. The ocean was so far below, 15 stories. She could hear the waves, but the sound seemed to come from an impossible distance. And then she felt it. Someone was behind her. She didn't hear footsteps, didn't hear breathing, but she felt it, like the air had changed, like the empty space behind her had suddenly filled. She turned around. 6 people, standing about 3 meters away, completely still. Sarah couldn't see their faces. The red light was behind them, turning them into silhouettes, but she could see they were wearing formal clothes. Old-fashioned, like from decades ago, and they were soaking wet. Water was literally dripping off them, pouring down their clothes, pooling at their feet. She could hear it, the steady drip, drip, drip. They didn't speak, didn't move, just stood there. Sarah tried to say something. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. She tried to step back, but her legs wouldn't obey. And then, one of them took a step forward. Sarah ran. She sprinted back across the deck, her feet slipping on the wet grates. She didn't look back, didn't dare. She reached the door. It was closed, fully closed. She grabbed the wheel and tried to turn it. It wouldn't move. Locked, completely locked. Sarah started pounding on the metal, screaming. She doesn't remember what she said, just screamed. And then the door opened. A crew member stood on the other side, uniform immaculate, flashlight in hand. He looked at Sarah with an expression she'll never forget. Not anger, not concern, confusion, pure confusion. "How did you get in here?" That's all he said. Sarah looked back over her shoulder. The deck was empty, completely empty. No footprints, no water, no people, just metal and red lights. They took Sarah to the medical bay, treated her for hypothermia. She'd been up there less than 10 minutes, but her core temperature had dropped dangerously low. Jason was on deck 4 the entire time, at the bar next to the casino, never went to the casino at all. His phone never showed deck 15. Only hers did. The next morning, the crew member came back. He wasn't supposed to tell her anything, but he did. "That deck hasn't been used since the ship's renovation," he said. "It's been sealed off for almost 70 years. Sarah went home the next day. Emergency disembarkation. The cruise line was very apologetic. Full refund. They asked her not to talk about what happened. She started researching when she got home, found old articles, maritime records. December 1957. The ship had a different name then. Fire in the engine room, Christmas cruise. Most passengers evacuated, but 6 people got trapped on the upper deck. Witnesses from rescue boats said they jumped, together, holding hands. Their bodies were never recovered. The ship was rebuilt, renovated. The upper deck was sealed. Deck 15 officially ceased to exist. That was 6 months ago. Sarah sent me this story last week. She won't go on the record, won't use her real name. But she wanted people to know, because she still gets the notifications. Every night, 11:47 p.m. Her phone buzzes. The cruise app, the one she never uninstalled. The one she's tried to delete 17 times, but keeps reappearing. Your family member is on deck 15. She doesn't know if it's real, if the app is actually doing this, or if she's seeing things. Her therapist says it's trauma. PTSD, her mind creating a pattern to make sense of what happened. But the notifications are there. I've seen the screenshots. Sometimes she opens the app, late at night when she can't sleep, and the map loads, shows the ship, still somewhere in the Mediterranean, and shows Jason's location, still on deck 15. She remarried, by the way. Jason never came back from that trip. He did, physically, but something changed. They divorced 4 months after they got home. He won't talk about it, won't say what happened. But Sarah told me something interesting, something she noticed in the weeks after they got back. Jason started taking cold showers, only cold. He said hot water made him uncomfortable, and sometimes, late at night, she'd wake up and find him standing at the window, just staring out. When she asked what he was looking at, he'd say nothing, but his lips would be moving, like he was counting something. 1, 2, 3, all the way to 23. She never asked him what he was counting. If you're on a cruise ship right now, do me a favor. Check your app, count the decks, and if you see one that shouldn't be there, don't go looking for it.
Did something happen to you out there? Something you still can't explain? Send your story to us. It could become one of our next nightmares.
The story I'm about to tell was shared with me by a marine biologist. I'll call her Dr. Emma Chen. She spent 12 years studying deep-sea fauna. She published more than 40 academic papers and was considered one of the leading specialists in abyssal ecosystems. But in July of 2022, after what was officially described as a routine expedition, she requested leave. The reason given was post-mission stress. She has not returned since. She contacted me in January of 2024, 18 months after the mission. She told me she needed to tell someone, that she could no longer carry it alone, and she asked me for one specific thing, to verify a name, Dr. Yuri Volkov, Soviet marine biologist. She said I would understand why after hearing the story. I checked, and what I found made me question everything she was about to tell me. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start at the beginning. July 2022, the Mariana Trench, 8,200 meters below the surface. The expedition was organized by an international oceanographic research consortium. The objective was to collect sediment samples and document abyssal fauna in the Mariana Trench. Target depth, 8,200 meters, nearly at the deepest known point of the ocean. The submersible was state-of-the-art, a 2-meter diameter titanium sphere, capacity for 3 people, rated for depths of up to 9,000 meters. Construction cost, $23 million. It had completed 17 previous dives, all successful. The crew consisted of Commander James Parker, a veteran pilot with 22 years of experience, David Morrison, systems engineer, responsible for all technical controls, and Dr. Emma Chen, marine biologist, specialist in extreme depth fauna. This was her 5th deep dive. She was more experienced than most. The briefing took place at 5 in the morning. System checks lasted 2 hours. Emma told me she was calm, even excited. By deep-sea standards, it was a routine mission. There was nothing to suggest it would be different from the others. At 7:15 a.m., they entered the submersible. Communication systems tested. Oxygen supply, 72 hours. Battery life, 48 hours. Everything green. At 7:32, they were launched into the ocean. The descent to 8,000 meters takes approximately 4 hours. You descend slowly, deliberately. There is no hurry at depth. Hurry kills. The first 500 meters are blue. Sunlight still penetrates. You see fish, algae. It's beautiful. After 1,000 meters, it begins to darken. At 1,500, you're in the twilight zone. Dim light, strange life. At 2,000 meters, complete darkness. Emma described the sensation to me. She said it's like being buried alive in slow motion, the ocean above pressing down, the weight of the water increasing with every meter. You feel it in the hull, small creaks, micro adjustments in the structure. It's normal, but it never stops being unsettling. At 3,000 meters, they turned on the external floodlights, beams of light cutting through absolute darkness. Occasionally, something passed through the light. Deep-sea squid, viperfish, creatures that have never seen sunlight, ghosts of the abyss. 4,000 meters, 5,000, 6,000. Systems functioning perfectly. Clear communication with the surface vessel. Emma was taking notes, cataloging what she saw through the cameras. Morrison checked systems every 15 minutes. Parker piloted with surgical precision. 7,000 meters. External pressure now at 700 atmospheres. 7 tons per square centimeter. Enough to crush a car like a soda can. The titanium sphere held, but you could feel it. The air seemed denser, even knowing it wasn't. 7,800 meters. 400 meters from the target depth. And then, the sonar detected something. Morrison saw it first. "We've got something on sonar," he said. Emma told me his voice was calm, professional. 400 meters below us. Large formation, not on the bathymetric maps. Parker adjusted course. They began descending toward the anomaly. Emma activated all external cameras. That was protocol. Any unmapped structure at that depth was a significant discovery. It could be a unique geological formation, a hydrothermal vent, anything. But the closer they got, the stranger the sonar return became. Morrison later told me, Emma gave me his contact, that the shape was too regular. Geology doesn't make straight lines. It doesn't make 90-degree angles. But this was. At 8,200 meters, they reached the structure's depth. Parker stabilized the submersible, adjusted position. Emma set the floodlights to maximum power, and they illuminated it. Metal. Emma saw metal, rusted, covered in sediment, but unmistakably metal. It wasn't rock. It wasn't natural. It was constructed. Parker maneuvered for a better view, and then they saw the full shape. A submarine. Large. Soviet class, Emma recognized immediately. She had studied naval history for her research. It was a diesel-electric submarine, 1960s design, and it was there, 8,200 meters below the surface, on the floor of the Mariana Trench. Emma told me they sat in silence for nearly a full minute, just staring, trying to process it. Submarines should not be there, not at that depth, and certainly not Soviet submarines from the 1960s that were never reported lost. Morrison was the first to speak. "We need to document this," he said. This is significant." Parker agreed and moved closer. Emma activated all cameras in high-resolution mode. This would be published. This was history. They circled the structure slowly, photographing every angle. The hull was surprisingly intact. No visible breaches. No obvious structural damage, as if it had simply settled there. Gently. Emma noticed something else. There wasn't enough marine life. At that depth, any structure that remains for decades becomes completely covered in abyssal organisms. Sponges, deep-sea corals, tube worms. But this submarine had very little, as if it hadn't been there as long as it should have. They reached the conning tower, the highest point of the submarine. Parker positioned the submersible about 5 meters away. Emma adjusted the camera to capture the identification number that should have been there. Morrison illuminated it with a directional light, and that's when they saw it. The observation window of the tower, small, circular, thick glass designed to withstand pressure, and something on the other side, a face, a human face pressed against the glass, looking directly at them. Emma told me her mind simply stopped. It couldn't process it. It wasn't possible. External pressure at that depth is 800 atmospheres, enough to compress a human body to a fraction of its size, enough to collapse lungs instantly. No one survives. No one can be there. But the figure remained, watching, and then it raised a hand, slowly, and waved. A deliberate motion, 5 fingers opening and closing, waving, as if greeting visitors. "We need to leave, now," Parker said. Emma told me his voice shook, the first time she had ever seen Parker lose composure. Morrison didn't respond. He was staring at the figure. Emma couldn't look away either. Then the figure moved. It stepped back from the window, disappeared into the darkness inside the submarine. For 3 seconds there was nothing, just the empty window. And then it appeared outside, floating in the water. No pressure suit, no diving equipment, just a naval uniform, dark blue, soaked, completely soaked, and the body was intact, human, not compressed, not distorted, impossible. "Emergency ascent, now!" Parker shouted. He reached for the controls, initiated the emergency ascent sequence. Nothing happened. He tried again. Nothing. The thrusters didn't respond. Morrison checked the panels. "Electrical system is floating," he said. "Voltage unstable. I don't know why." The internal lights began to flicker. Blue, dark, blue, dark. Emma told me that was when real panic set in. Then they heard it, knocking, on the outside of the hull, metallic, rhythmic, thunk, thunk, thunk. Something was hitting the submersible from the outside. At 8,200 meters depth, Morrison activated the side external camera. The screen lit up, showing the hull, and beside it, the figure, floating parallel to the submersible, less than a meter away. It was holding something, a tool, rusted, a large wrench, and it was striking the hull methodically. Thunk, thunk, thunk. Looking directly at the camera as it did, Emma told me the face was wrong. Not obviously, but something was wrong. The eyes didn't blink. The mouth didn't move with the water, as if the figure wasn't really there, as if it were a projection. But the wrench was real. The impacts were real. The sound was real. Then the figure stopped hitting the hull, lowered the tool, and pointed downward, straight down, toward the abyss below them, and waved again, as if inviting them, as if saying, "Come, go down, this way." Morrison was frantically working the controls, trying to restart the emergency system. He kept saying, "Backup of backup. It has to work. It has to." Parker kept his hands on the controls even without response. Emma couldn't take her eyes off the screen. The figure kept pointing, kept waving. The knocking resumed, faster, stronger. Thunk, 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 thunk. Urgent. Emma said it felt insistent, as if the figure was becoming impatient, as if it was trying to communicate something important. Then, click. Morrison did it. "Emergency system online. Thrusters responding." Parker didn't hesitate. Full power. Emergency ascent. Dangerous. Rapid pressure change could damage the hull, but the alternative was staying there. With it, the submersible shook. Thrusters roared. They began to rise. Emma looked through the rear viewport. The figure was shrinking, growing more distant, still pointing downward, still waving. Then it vanished into the darkness. They ascended fast, faster than protocol allowed, but they were alive. Systems stable. Emma checked the cameras, all recording. They had evidence. Proof of whatever it was, 6,000 meters, 5,500. Morrison checked systems every 30 seconds, all green. Parker held a straight upward course. Emma began to believe they had escaped. Then Morrison looked at the sonar. "We have contact," he said, his voice tight. "Below us, 100 meters, ascending." Parker looked. Emma looked. On the screen, clearly visible, a large object, elongated shape, ascending at the same speed. "It's the submarine," Emma said. She was certain. "It's following us." Parker accelerated. 250 meters per minute, beyond safe limits. The submarine accelerated too, maintaining exactly 100 meters of distance. Emma told me this was impossible. Submarines of that class are built for depths of at most 1,000 meters. At 8,000, the hull should have collapsed decades ago. And even if it hadn't, submarines don't ascend on their own. They require ballast systems, power, functional controls. But it was ascending. The sonar didn't lie. 5,000 meters, 4,500. The submarine remained, always 100 meters behind. Morrison activated the rear camera, adjusted the lights downward. At first, only darkness, floating particles. Then for a second, he saw it, a large metallic shape rising through the dark. Conning tower visible, and in the tower window, that face, still looking up, still watching them. 3,000 meters, 2,500. Emma checked sonar again. It was still there. 2,000 meters, 1,500. Parker was sweating, silent, focused only on climbing. Faster, higher, 1,000 meters, 900, 800. And then the sonar contact vanished, just disappeared, as if it had never been there. Morrison swept the area with active sonar. Nothing. Empty ocean below. 400 meters, 300. Sunlight began to penetrate. Blue growing lighter. 200, 100. Then, surface. They surfaced at 1347. 2 hours and 45 minutes of emergency ascent. The support vessel was already positioned. They recovered the submersible. Emma told me that when the hatch opened, she had never breathed air that felt so good. Even the salty ocean air, even the oppressive heat on deck, anything was better than that darkness, that pressure, that presence. The expedition captain met them immediately. "Status," Parker replied. "Mission aborted, emergency ascent, system instability. Also, we found something. We need to report." They were taken to debriefing. They told everything. The Soviet submarine, the figure in the window, the figure outside. Electrical failure, knocking on the hull, being followed during ascent. The captain listened, neutral expression, then asked, "Do you have exact coordinates?" Morrison provided them, precise latitude and longitude. "And the recordings?" Emma confirmed. "All cameras recorded. We have everything." The captain contacted the United States Navy. An unidentified submarine discovery in international waters was serious, especially a Soviet one, especially one never reported lost. A military vessel was dispatched. ETA, 18 hours. While waiting, Emma went to review the footage, to verify details. Prepare the technical report. A data technician began transferring files. First 1,000 meters, transferred. 2,000, transferred. 3,000, okay. 4,000, okay. 5,000, okay. 6,000, okay. 7,000, okay. 7,700 meters. File corrupted. Emma asked them to try again. Same result. Data recovery attempted. Nothing. From 7,800 to 8,300 meters, the technician said, all files are corrupted or deleted. I can't access them. Morrison checked system logs. No record of failure. No record of corruption. Cameras had functioned perfectly, but the critical depth footage no longer existed. Emma felt something sink in her stomach. No proof, just 3 witnesses, and an impossible story. The technician kept checking. "Wait," he said. "There's one frame, just one, partially recovered, from 8,200 meters." He opened it. The image loaded slowly, lines of pixels appearing one by one. Emma leaned forward. Morrison did too. They saw the interior of the submersible, the external camera angled inward through the viewport, showing the 3 of them. Parker at the controls, Morrison at the panels, and Emma looking at something out of frame. But there was something else behind Emma, in the tiny space of the submersible where there should have been no room. A fourth figure, standing, wearing a soaked naval uniform, looking directly at the camera. The military vessel arrived, a team of 6 officers, 2 deep-sea divers, advanced sonar equipment. They went directly to the coordinates. Emma, Morrison, and Parker watched from the research vessel. Active sonar, full sweep, 5-kilometer radius, depth from 7,000 to 9,000 meters. The scan took 3 hours. Emma watched every second. Then the report. "We detected no structure at the provided coordinates. Seafloor topography matches existing bathymetric data. No anomalies. No objects of significant size. We repeated the sweep 3 times. Negative result." Emma stood. "That's impossible. We saw it. We filmed it. The submarine was there. 800 feet long. It can't just disappear." The officer was polite but firm. "Dr. Chen, our sonar would detect a coin on the seafloor at that depth. If there were a submarine, we would find it." Morrison showed the recovered image, the figure behind Emma. The officer studied it. "Image corruption," he said. "Data compression artifact. Pareidolia. The human brain finds patterns where none exist, common in degraded images." Emma insisted on the system logs. The electrical failure. The knocking, Morrison confirmed. Parker confirmed. But without physical evidence, they were just accounts. The officer was sympathetic. "I recommend a rest period. Deep sea dives cause psychological stress. It's not uncommon to experience altered perceptions, especially at that depth." That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She stared at the image, the figure behind her, the uniform. Something looked familiar. She zoomed in, maximum resolution possible, and saw it. On the uniform, on the chest, an identification patch, blurred but some characters legible. Cyrillic, Russian letters. She copied what she could see, used an online Russian-English dictionary, translated Volkov, a common Russian name. She searched. Volkov Soviet submarine missing. Results, but not from the right years. She refined the search. Volkov Soviet marine biologist. And then she found him. Dr. Yuri Volkov, Soviet marine biologist, specialist in deep-sea fauna. Lost in a submersible accident in 1968. Coral Trench. Estimated depth, 8,000 meters. Body never recovered. Emma stared at the photo. She recognized the eyes. The same eyes in the window. The same eyes floating outside. The same eyes in the corrupted image behind her. She kept researching. Found a declassified Soviet Navy report, translated by a naval historian. The accident occurred on August 12, 1968. Research submersible, 3-person crew. Catastrophic failure at 8,300 meters. Final communication at 14:47 local time. Pilot reported, electrical system unstable, thrusters unresponsive. Then silence. Search lasted 2 weeks, nothing found. Official conclusion, structural failure. instant implosion, immediate death. But Emma found something else. A footnote, nearly erased. A witness on the support vessel reported something strange during the search. Sonar briefly detected a large object ascending rapidly, from 9,000 meters to 4,000. Then it vanished from sonar. Search redirected to that area. Nothing found. 3 weeks later, Emma returned to her institute, still officially on leave. But she needed to check something. She remembered a plaque. In the main hall, a memorial honoring marine scientists lost in service. She had passed it every day for 12 years. She stopped. 17 names. Dates ranging from 1957 to 2019. And there, third on the list, Dr. Yuri Volkov, 1931 to 1968, marine biologist, lost during a deep-sea research expedition, pioneer in abyssal fauna studies. His dedication to science remains an example for future generations. Beside the name, a small photo. Emma stepped closer. Same man, same face, same expression. And she realized he was wearing a naval uniform, the same uniform she had seen in the window, the same uniform floating outside, the same uniform in the corrupted image. She photographed the plaque and sent it to Morrison. Simple message. It's him. Morrison replied 3 minutes later. How is that possible? Emma had no answer. She still doesn't. Emma never returned to deep dives. She transferred to laboratory work, sample analysis, nothing that requires going into the ocean. Morrison continues working, but only on shallow dives, less than 1,000 meters. Parker retired 3 months after the mission, told his family it was time to stop. The Navy archived the incident as an unconfirmed event. Without physical evidence, there was nothing more to investigate. Emma showed me the full file when we met. 500 pages, most of it redacted. But one thing wasn't redacted. A list of coordinates of other similar incidents. Reported, unconfirmed, archived. 12 incidents over the last 40 years. All at extreme depths. All involving visual contact with unidentified structures or entities. All with no physical evidence after investigation. Emma asked me a question. If something is down there, she said, at the real bottom, how would we know? We've mapped 5% of the ocean floor. 5%. 95% is completely unknown territory, more unknown than the surface of Mars. And she told me one last thing, something not in any official report. The day after the dive, Morrison inspected the submersible, routine maintenance, and found something. On the outer hull, on the side where the figure had been hitting, marks, deep scratches, in a specific pattern. Morrison photographed them before reporting. Emma showed me the photo. They weren't random scratches. They were numbers, coordinates, latitude and longitude, engraved into the titanium. She checked them. Mariana Trench, Challenger Deep, the deepest known point in the ocean, 10,984 meters. And according to bathymetric records, an anomalous structure had been detected by sonar at that location in 1976. Never investigated. Archived as sonar noise. Shape, cylindrical, size, consistent with a large submarine. Emma asked me if she should report it, the coordinates, the discovery. I asked her what she thought. She stayed silent for a long time. Then she said, I think some things are meant to stay at the bottom. I think there's a reason we stop exploring. I think when you stare into the abyss long enough, eventually something stares back. 3 months after our conversation, Emma sent me one last message. There was another expedition, she wrote, Challenger Deep, Crewed submersible. Communication lost at 10,000 meters. Search underway. But I think I know what they'll find. Or rather, what they won't find. I looked it up. Private expedition, billionaire funded. Objective, film Challenger deep in 8K resolution, 3 crew members. Last contact at 11:23 local time. They reported, electrical system unstable, and we see something large. It can't be. Then silence. The search lasted 3 weeks. They found nothing. No wreckage, no emergency beacon, no signal. Just ocean. Official conclusion, catastrophic failure, implosion, instant death. But Emma knows better, because a week later she received a package. No return address, just her name. Inside, a flash drive. No note, no explanation. She connected it. One file, an image, timestamp, date of the lost expedition, depth, 10,967 meters. The image showed the interior of a submersible. 3 people, looking at something out of frame. Expressions Emma says she can't describe. Terror doesn't cover it. And behind them, reflected in the viewport glass, figures, multiple, wearing naval uniforms, soaked, standing, watching. Emma deleted the file, destroyed the flash drive, told no one, except me. And now, I'm telling you, she made me promise one thing. If I told this story, I had to include a warning. For anyone considering deep-sea exploration, for anyone thinking of going where no human has gone before, the ocean has secrets, and some secrets don't want to be discovered. They want discoverers. Emma still lives near the ocean. She can't fully leave it, but she never looks at the water for too long, because sometimes late at night, she swears she sees lights, deep beneath the surface, moving, rising slowly, as if something is coming up to check, as if something wants to be sure that she remembers, and she does. Every day, that face in the window, those knocks on the hull, those coordinates engraved in titanium, and the question that never leaves, what is really waiting at the bottom?